The wedding planning Pinterest board glowed on my laptop screen at 2 a.m, mocking me with its pastel perfection. 47 pins of dream wedding venues and romantic first dance songs, all added in the last week while my fiancée Tessa claimed she was too stressed to think about the wedding. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Tyler Briggs, and I should have known something was wrong when the woman who once planned our grocery trips 3 days in advance suddenly couldn't decide on centerpieces. The front door slammed with enough force to rattle the windows. Tessa's heels clicked across our hardwood floors like machine gun fire. "How was the venue meeting?" I called from the kitchen, not looking up from my coffee. "Fine." The single word carried enough ice to freeze the Pacific Northwest rain drumming against our windows. She stood in the doorway, mascara smudged, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Her wedding makeup artist training had taught her to make other brides glow on their special day, but tonight she looked like she'd been crying in a car for an hour. "Just fine. You were gone for 4 hours to look at one place." It was complicated. There were logistics to discuss. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I'm going to bed." "Tessa, wait." I stood, reaching for her hand. "What's really going on? You've been acting strange for weeks." She yanked away like I'd burned her. "Nothing's going on, Tyler. God, you're so paranoid." "Maybe that's the problem." "What problem? I didn't know we had a problem." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and I caught a flash of something, guilt, fear, across her face. "We need to talk," she said quietly. "But not tonight. I just can't tonight." She disappeared upstairs, leaving me standing in our kitchen with a cold cup of coffee and a growing knot in my stomach. The next morning, I woke to an empty bed and the sound of Tessa's car backing out of the driveway. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "Gone to help Lindsay with the Morrison wedding. Back late. Don't wait up." Lindsay Chen was Tessa's best friend and business partner, a wedding planner with an Instagram following and an opinion about everything. If Tessa was avoiding me, Lindsay would know why. But instead of calling Lindsay, I did what any good engineer would do. I looked for patterns in the data. Tessa's behavior had changed exactly 3 weeks ago. That's when the late nights started, when she stopped talking about our wedding, when she began treating me like a roommate instead of her fiancé. 3 weeks ago was also when Darren O'Neill had moved back to Seattle. Darren, Tessa's ex-boyfriend from college, the marketing executive with the perfect smile and the Audi he treated better than most people treated their children. They'd dated for 2 years before she met me, and according to Tessa, it had ended amicably when he took a job in San Francisco. Now he was back, working for some tech startup downtown, and suddenly my fiancé couldn't stand to be in the same room with me. I spent my lunch break at the construction site doing what I do best, building something solid from the ground up. But today, even the satisfaction of seeing steel beams take shape couldn't quiet the voice in my head, whispering that my relationship was falling apart. "You look like someone stole your lunch money," said Ethan Rodriguez, my work partner and the closest thing I had to a best friend. He was 25, built like a linebacker, and had the emotional intelligence of a therapist, despite spending his days operating heavy machinery. "Tessa's acting weird," I admitted, adjusting my hard hat. "Distant. Secretive." "Pre-wedding jitters?" Ethan suggested, but his tone said he didn't believe it either. "Maybe." I watched him guide a steel beam into place with the precision of a surgeon. "Or maybe she's having second thoughts." "About the wedding or about you?" "Both, probably." Ethan shut off the crane and climbed down. "You want some advice from a guy who's been married for 3 years?" "Shoot." "Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And if she's hiding something, you need to find out what it is before you walk down that aisle." That evening, I tried to follow Ethan's advice. I made Tessa's favorite dinner, salmon with that lemon herb sauce she loved, and opened a bottle of wine. When she walked through the door at 9:30, I was waiting. "We need to talk," I said before she could escape upstairs. She froze, her hand on the banister. "Tyler, I'm exhausted. Can't this wait?" "No, it can't. Something's wrong, and I want to know what it is." She turned slowly, and in the soft light of our living room, I could see the guilt written across her face like a confession. "Nothing's wrong," she said, but her voice cracked on the last word. "Tessa, please, just tell me the truth. Are you having second thoughts about the wedding?" For a moment, I thought she might actually be honest with me. Her shoulders sagged, and she looked so tired, so small, standing there in her designer dress and her perfectly applied makeup. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it instinctively, and I saw her face change. The guilt disappeared, replaced by something harder, more determined. I can't do this, she whispered. Can't do what? I can't marry you. The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd been expecting them, but hearing them out loud still knocked the breath from my lungs. Why? I managed. She was already moving toward the door, grabbing her purse, her keys. I just can't. I'm sorry, Tyler. I'm so sorry. Tessa, wait. You can't just drop a bomb like that and leave. We need to talk about this. But she was already gone, the door slamming behind her with a finality that echoed through our suddenly empty house. I stood there for a long time, staring at the salmon getting cold on the dining room table, trying to process what had just happened. My fiancée of 2 years had just called off our wedding with all the ceremony of canceling a dentist appointment. That's when I noticed her laptop was still open on the kitchen counter, Facebook Messenger glowing on the screen. I shouldn't have looked. I knew I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The conversation was with Lindsay, time-stamped just minutes before Tessa walked through the door. Lindsay: Did you tell him? Tessa: I couldn't. He made dinner. He was trying so hard. Lindsay: You have to tell him eventually. Tessa: I know, but not tonight. I need more time to figure this out. Lindsay: Darren won't wait forever. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my home office, surrounded by the detritus of our relationship, engagement photos, wedding planning folders, a guest list we'd spent weeks perfecting, and did what engineers do best. I gathered data. Tessa's laptop was a treasure trove of information once I got past her pathetically simple password, our anniversary date, which felt like a cruel joke now. 3 weeks of messages painted a picture I'd been too stupid or too trusting to see. It had started innocently enough. Darren had reached out when he moved back to Seattle, just wanting to catch up with old friends. Tessa had mentioned it to me in passing. Remember Darren? He's back in town. And I'd thought nothing of it. Why would I? I trusted her. The messages began as friendly updates. His new job, her wedding planning business, mutual friends from college. But somewhere around message 50, the tone shifted. Darren: I've been thinking about us a lot lately. Tessa: Don't. I'm engaged. Darren: To that engineer guy? Come on, Tess. You know we were good together. Tessa: That was a long time ago. Darren: Was it, though? Because I remember you saying I was the love of your life. And then, 3 days later. Tessa: I can't stop thinking about what you said. The messages that followed made my stomach turn. Plans to meet for coffee that turned into lunch that turned into dinner. Conversations about their connection and whether Tessa was settling for a safe choice like me. The worst part wasn't the emotional affair. It was how calculated it all seemed. Darren knew exactly what buttons to push, exactly how to make Tessa question everything we'd built together, and she'd let him. By the time I reached the most recent messages, my hands were shaking with rage. Darren: Leave him. You know you want to. Tessa: It's not that simple. The wedding is in 6 weeks. Darren: So cancel it. Tell him you're not ready. Tessa: What if I'm making a mistake? Darren: The only mistake would be marrying someone you don't love. I closed the laptop and walked to the bathroom, where I threw up everything I'd eaten in the past 12 hours. When I finally composed myself enough to think clearly, I realized I had a choice to make. I could confront Tessa, demand an explanation, try to salvage our relationship, or I could do something else entirely. I chose option 3. I could make them both pay. But first, I needed more information. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to Tessa's office. She shared a small studio space with Lindsay in the trendy part of downtown, the kind of place that charged 3 times the rent because it had exposed brick walls and artisanal coffee shops on every corner. I waited across the street until I saw Tessa leave for a client meeting, then I walked in like I owned the place. Lindsay looked up from her computer, startled. Tyler, what are you doing here? Looking for my fiancée, I said, keeping my voice casual. She forgot her charger at home. Oh, she just left for the Morrison consultation. She'll be back around 3. I nodded, pretending to check my phone. Actually, maybe you can help me with something. I'm trying to plan a surprise for Tessa, but I need to know her schedule for the next few weeks. You know how secretive she's been about work lately. Lindsay's face went pale. Her schedule? Nothing major. Just when she's free for dinner, that sort of thing. I know she's been working late a lot. Tyler? Lindsay fidgeted with her pen, not meeting my eyes. Maybe you should ask Tessa directly. I tried, but you know how she is about work-life balance. She doesn't like mixing business with personal stuff. It was a lie, but Lindsay nodded like it made perfect sense. Tessa had never been secretive about her work schedule before. She used to complain about difficult clients and impossible timelines every night over dinner. "Well," Lindsay said slowly, "she has been putting in extra hours lately. Building the business, you know?" "Right, building the business." I smiled, but it felt like broken glass. "With anyone in particular?" Lindsay's face went from pale to green. "What do you mean?" "New clients, old friends, that sort of thing. She mentioned running into Darren O'Neill a few weeks ago." The pen snapped in Lindsay's hand. "I should go," I said, backing toward the door. "Tell Tessa I stopped by." I made it to my car before the rage hit me like a tidal wave. Lindsay knew. She'd known all along, and she'd been helping Tessa hide it. That afternoon, I drove to Darren's office building downtown. It was one of those glass towers that screamed tech money, all clean lines and pretentious art installations in the lobby. I didn't go inside. I just wanted to see what I was dealing with. At 5:30, he walked out like he owned the world. Designer suit, perfect hair, the kind of confident stride that comes from never having to worry about money or consequences. He climbed into his silver Audi and drove away, probably to meet my fiancée for drinks. I followed him. He drove to a wine bar in Capitol Hill, the kind of place that served $20 glasses of wine and called it curated. I parked across the street and waited. Tessa arrived 15 minutes later. I watched through the window as they embraced, as he pulled out her chair, as she laughed at something he said. They looked like a couple. They looked happy. They looked like everything Tessa and I used to be. I sat in my car for 2 hours, watching them share appetizers and lean across the table to whisper in each other's ears. When he reached over to brush a strand of hair from her face, I had to grip the steering wheel to keep from putting my fist through the windshield. At 10 o'clock, they left together. She got into his car, leaving hers in the restaurant parking lot. I didn't follow them. I didn't need to see where they went or what they did. I'd seen enough. But as I drove home to our empty house, past the wedding dress hanging in our closet and the save-the-date magnets on our refrigerator, I made a decision. If Tessa wanted to destroy our life together, she was welcome to it. But she wasn't going to do it quietly, and she wasn't going to walk away clean. I was going to make sure everyone knew exactly what kind of person she really was, and I was going to enjoy every minute of it. The next week passed in a blur of careful planning and barely contained fury. I went to work, came home, made dinner, and pretended everything was normal. Tessa came and went at odd hours, making excuses about client meetings and vendor appointments. We moved around each other like polite strangers, and if she noticed my sudden lack of interest in wedding planning, she didn't mention it. But I wasn't idle. Every spare moment was spent gathering evidence, building a case that would destroy both of them so thoroughly that they'd never recover. I started with a digital trail. Tessa had gotten sloppy, leaving her laptop unlocked, forgetting to log out of her accounts. I found restaurant receipts charged to Darren's credit card, hotel bookings for business trips that lined up perfectly with her mysterious absences, photos from a weekend getaway to Vancouver that she'd told me was a solo visit to her sister. The sister who lived in Portland? I copied everything to a secure folder on my work computer, organizing it with the same methodical precision I use for construction blueprints. Dates, times, locations, financial records, a complete timeline of their affair. But digital evidence wasn't enough. I needed something more personal, more devastating. That's when I remembered Monica O'Neill. Darren's wife was a corporate lawyer, the kind of woman who wore power suits and ate weak men for breakfast. I'd met her once at a college reunion, back when Tessa and I were first dating. She was sharp, ambitious, and completely devoted to her husband. She also had no idea he was cheating on her. I found her office number easily enough. She was a partner at one of Seattle's most prestigious law firms. Getting her attention was trickier. I couldn't just call and say, "Your husband is having an affair with my fiancée." She'd hang up, probably report me for harassment. I needed a more subtle approach, so I sent her an email from a generic account. Subject line: information regarding your husband's business activities. The message was brief. "Mrs. O'Neill, I have reason to believe your husband may be involved in activities that could affect both your marriage and his professional reputation. If you're interested in learning more, please respond to this email. A concerned party." She responded within an hour. "Who is this, and what kind of activities are you referring to?" I sent her 3 photos. Darren and Tessa at the wine bar, Darren and Tessa checking into the hotel in Vancouver, and a screenshot of their text messages discussing their incredible connection. Her reply came back in minutes. "I want to meet. Today." We met at a coffee shop in Pioneer Square, far from both our offices and anyone who might recognize us. Monica looked exactly like I remembered, tall, elegant, intimidating, but there were dark circles under her eyes and a tightness around her mouth that hadn't been there before. "You're Tyler Briggs," she said, sitting down across from me. It wasn't a question. "You know who I am?" "I make it my business to know about threats to my family. Darren mentioned you a few weeks ago, said you were engaged to his ex-girlfriend." Her smile was sharp as a blade. He didn't mention he was trying to steal her back. I slid a manila folder across the table. Everything's in there. Photos, text messages, credit card receipts, hotel records. 3 weeks of evidence. She opened the folder and went through it page by page, her expression never changing. When she finished, she closed it carefully and looked at me with something that might have been respect. "This is very thorough," she said. "Very professional. I'm an engineer. I like documentation. What do you want from me?" "Nothing," I said. "I thought you deserved to know what kind of man you're married to." She studied my face for a long moment. "That's not entirely true, is it? You want revenge?" "Yes," I admitted. "I do." "Good." She stood, tucking the folder under her arm. "So do I." That evening, I came home to find Tessa pacing in our living room, her phone pressed to her ear. "I don't care what she says," she was saying. "There's no way she could know?" "What?" "No, Tyler doesn't know anything. He's completely clueless." She saw me standing in the doorway and went pale. "I have to go," she said into the phone, hanging up quickly. "Everything okay?" I asked, hanging up my jacket like nothing had happened. "Fine. Just wedding stuff. You know how stressed Lindsay gets." But it wasn't Lindsay she'd been talking to. I'd heard enough of Darren's voice through the phone to recognize it. "Actually," I said, "I wanted to talk to you about the wedding." She froze. "What about it?" "I've been thinking about what you said the other night, about not being ready. Tyler, maybe you're right. Maybe we should postpone it." Relief flooded her face, followed quickly by guilt. "Really? You'd be okay with that?" "If it's what you need, then yes." "I love you, Tessa. I want you to be happy." She started crying then, ugly, guilt-ridden sobs that shook her whole body. I held her while she cried, stroking her hair, whispering that everything would be okay. And for the first time in weeks, I was telling the truth. Everything was going to be okay, just not for her. The next few days were almost peaceful. Tessa, believing she'd bought herself time to figure out her situation, was kinder to me than she'd been in weeks. She made coffee in the mornings, asked about my work, even suggested we watch a movie together. It was like having the old Tessa back, the woman I'd fallen in love with 3 years ago. For brief moments, I almost forgot what she'd done to us. Almost. But then she'd get a text message and her face would light up in a way it never did when she looked at me. Or she'd make an excuse about working late and I'd know she was really meeting him. The knife would twist a little deeper and my resolve would harden. On Friday afternoon, Ethan found me on the construction site, staring at a set of blueprints without really seeing them. "You look like hell," he said, settling down beside me on a stack of lumber. "Thanks. You really know how to make a guy feel better. What's going on with you? And don't say nothing. You've been walking around like a zombie all week." I considered lying, keeping up the pretense that everything was fine, but I was tired of carrying the weight of Tessa's betrayal alone. "She's cheating on me," I said quietly. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. "You sure?" "I have photos." "Shit, man. I'm sorry." The worst part is she thinks I don't know. She's been acting like she's doing me a favor by postponing the wedding, like she's being noble by not marrying me while she's in love with someone else. "What are you going to do?" I looked out at the Seattle skyline, gray and drizzling as always. "I'm going to make sure everyone knows what she really is." "Tyler," Ethan's voice carried a warning, "be careful. Revenge has a way of backfiring. Not if you do it right." That evening, I put my plan into motion. I'd spent hours crafting the perfect email, one that would expose Tessa and Darren without making me look vindictive or crazy. The subject line read, "Wedding cancellation and vendor updates." The recipient list included everyone who mattered, our families, our friends, our coworkers, and most importantly, the entire wedding industry network that Tessa and Lindsay had spent years building. The message was simple and devastating. "Dear friends and family, I'm writing to inform you that Tessa Monroe and I have decided to cancel our wedding, scheduled for next month. This decision comes after I discovered that Tessa has been having an affair with her ex-boyfriend, Darren O'Neill. I want to thank everyone who supported us during our engagement. Your love and friendship have meant the world to me during this difficult time. I also want to apologize to the vendors and industry professionals who have worked with us. This situation is entirely due to Tessa's choices, and I hope it won't reflect poorly on the wedding community as a whole. For those who have already made travel arrangements or purchased gifts, please don't feel obligated to follow through. I understand this is an awkward situation for everyone involved. Thank you for your understanding. Tyler Briggs. I attached 3 photos, Tessa and Darren at the wine bar, Tessa and Darren at the hotel, and a screenshot of their text messages where she called our relationship a mistake. I hovered over the send button for a full minute, knowing that once I pressed it, there would be no going back. Tessa's reputation, her business, her relationships with friends and family, everything would be destroyed. Then I thought about her laughing at Darren's jokes while I sat alone in our house, wondering what I'd done wrong. I hit send. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My phone started buzzing with calls and text messages before I'd even closed my laptop. I turned it off and went to bed, sleeping better than I had in weeks. I woke up to 57 missed calls and over 100 text messages. Tessa had left 12 voicemails, progressing from confused to angry to desperate to furious. The last one was just her screaming obscenities at me for 2 minutes straight. Lindsay had sent a series of increasingly frantic texts. What the hell did you do? You've destroyed her business. How could you be so cruel? My mother had called 6 times, my sister twice, and my best friend from college had sent a message that simply read, "Holy shit, dude." But the message that made me smile came from Monica O'Neill. Well played. Darren's boss wants to see him first thing Monday morning. Something about moral character and company reputation. I was making breakfast when Tessa came home. She burst through the door like a hurricane, her face red with rage and tears. "How could you do this to me?" she screamed. "How could you destroy my life?" "I didn't destroy your life," I said calmly, not looking up from my eggs. "I just told people the truth." "The truth? You made it sound like I'm some kind of monster. Aren't you?" She stared at me, shocked into silence. In all our years together, I'd never spoken to her with such cold contempt. "Tyler, please, let me explain." "Explain what? How you've been lying to me for weeks? How you've been sleeping with your ex-boyfriend while planning our wedding? How you made me think I was going crazy when I asked if something was wrong? It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? Were you going to leave me at the altar, or were you planning to marry me and keep screwing Darren on the side?" She flinched like I'd hit her. "I never meant to hurt you." "But you did. You hurt me every day for 3 weeks, and you enjoyed it. You got off on having this secret, on making me feel like I wasn't good enough." "That's not true, isn't it? Then why didn't you just break up with me the first time he texted you? Why drag it out? Why make me suffer?" She had no answer for that. "Get out," I said quietly. "Tyler, please. We can work through this." "No, we can't. There's nothing left to work through. You made your choice." "I choose you. I choose us." I laughed, and the sound was bitter even to my own ears. "You don't get to choose me now. You had your chance to choose me, and you chose him instead. Every day for 3 weeks, you chose him." "But I realized I made a mistake. The only mistake you made was getting caught." She stood there for a moment, tears streaming down her face, looking lost and broken. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the photos of her and Darren, the lies, the way she'd made me doubt my own sanity. "Get out," I repeated. "Take your things and go." She left without another word. The weekend passed in a blur of phone calls, text messages, and unexpected visitors. My family was supportive but concerned about the public nature of my revelation. Tessa's family was furious, accusing me of humiliating their daughter out of spite. "She made a mistake," her mother said when she called Sunday morning. "That doesn't give you the right to destroy her reputation." "She didn't make a mistake," I replied. "She made a series of deliberate choices over the course of 3 weeks. Every lie, every secret meeting, every time she came home smelling like his cologne. Those were all choices." "You're being cruel, Tyler." "I'm being honest. There's a difference." But the call that surprised me most came from Jasmine Park, one of Tessa's coworkers and closest friends. "I need to see you," she said. "There are things you don't know." We met at a diner in Ballard, far from anywhere we might run into mutual acquaintances. Jasmine looked nervous, fidgeting with her coffee cup and glancing around like she expected Tessa to materialize at any moment. "I should have told you weeks ago," she began. "But Tessa is my friend, and I thought... I hoped she'd come to her senses." "Told me what?" "About the plan." "What plan?" "She wasn't just having an affair, Tyler. She and Darren were planning to humiliate you. They thought it was funny, the idea of you being so clueless while they carried on right under your nose." The diner suddenly felt too hot, too small. "What do you mean?" "They were going to wait until after the wedding. Darren wanted to see if he could seduce a married woman. It was like a game to them." I gripped my coffee cup so hard I thought it might shatter. You're lying. I wish I was. Tessa showed me text messages where they were laughing about how oblivious you were. Darren called you the Mark, like you were some kind of con job. Why are you telling me this now? Jasmine looked ashamed. Because what you did, exposing them publicly, it wasn't cruel, it was justice, and I wanted you to know that you didn't go far enough. What do you mean? Darren's married, right? His wife is a lawyer? Yes. Tessa knew. She knew he was married, and she didn't care. In fact, she thought it made it more exciting. She used to joke about being the other woman. I felt sick. I'd known Tessa was selfish, but this level of callousness was beyond anything I'd imagined. There's more, Jasmine continued. They were planning to move in together after your honeymoon. Darren was going to leave his wife, and Tessa was going to leave you. But they wanted to wait until after the wedding so you'd be financially responsible for all the vendor cancellations. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, Tyler. I should have told you sooner, but I kept hoping Tessa would realize what she was doing and stop. I thanked Jasmine and drove home in a daze. I'd thought I understood the depth of Tessa's betrayal, but this was something else entirely. This wasn't just an affair. It was a calculated plan to destroy my life for their entertainment. That evening, I called Monica O'Neill. I have more information, I said when she answered. About the affair? About their plans for after the wedding. I told her everything Jasmine had shared, watching through my window as the Seattle skyline lit up against the darkening sky. When I finished, Monica was quiet for a long moment. They were going to make fools of both of us, she said finally. Yes. Well then, I think it's time we return the favor. What do you have in mind? Darren's company is having their annual gala next Saturday. 500 people, including clients, investors, and media. He's supposed to give a presentation about integrity in business. I could hear the smile in her voice. What if he had some unexpected visual aids? Monday morning brought news that Darren had been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into his personal conduct. Apparently, several clients had seen my email and were questioning whether they wanted to do business with someone who cheated on his wife. Tessa's business was in similar trouble. 3 brides had already canceled their contracts, and Lindsay was fielding angry calls from vendors who didn't want to be associated with the drama. But I wasn't done yet. Tuesday afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. Tyler, this is Sarah Mitchell from Seattle Wedding Magazine. I knew the name. Sarah was one of the most influential people in the local wedding industry. Her magazine could make or break vendors with a single review. I'm calling about the situation with Tessa Monroe, she continued. I understand you have documentation of her affair? I do. Would you be willing to share it? We're working on an article about professional ethics in the wedding industry. What kind of article? The kind that ensures she never works in this business again. I emailed Sarah everything I had within the hour. By Wednesday, the story had spread beyond Seattle. A gossip blog had picked it up, then a lifestyle website, then social media. There's a wedding planner affair was trending on Twitter, with people sharing their own stories of vendor betrayals and wedding disasters. Tessa had become a cautionary tale, a symbol of everything wrong with the wedding industry's obsession with perfection over authenticity. Thursday evening, she showed up at my door one last time. She looked terrible, hollow-eyed, gaunt, like she hadn't slept or eaten in days. Her usually perfect makeup was smudged, her hair unwashed. Please, she said before I could speak, please make it stop. Make what stop? The articles, the social media posts, the phone calls. I can't go anywhere without people recognizing me. I lost my business, Tyler. Lindsay had to fire me to save her own reputation. I didn't write those articles. I just told the truth. You destroyed my life. No, Tessa. You destroyed your life. I just made sure everyone knew about it. She started crying then. The same ugly sobs I'd held her through just a week earlier. But this time, I felt nothing. What about Darren? I asked. Is he taking care of you now that you've both lost everything? Her face crumpled. He won't return my calls. His wife filed for divorce and took half his assets. He blames me for ruining his life. Ironic, isn't it? You both thought you were so clever, so much smarter than the people you were betraying, but you never considered what would happen when the truth came out. I loved you, she whispered. I really did love you. No, you didn't. You loved the idea of me, the safe choice, the backup plan, the guy who would pay for the wedding while you had your fun with someone else. That's not true, isn't it? Then why didn't you choose me when it mattered? She had no answer. Goodbye, Tessa, I said, and closed the door. Saturday night arrived with the kind of autumn rain that makes Seattle famous. Steady, relentless, washing the city clean. I sat in my car outside the Grand Hyatt, watching Seattle's business elite arrive for Darren's company gala in their designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. Monica had invited me as her guest, a final twist of the knife that I couldn't resist. She'd spent the week preparing for this moment with the precision of a military campaign, and tonight would be Darren's complete and utter destruction. I found her in the hotel lobby, stunning in a black evening gown that probably cost more than my monthly salary. She looked like a woman who owned the world, not someone whose husband had been cheating on her for weeks. "Ready for the show?" she asked, linking her arm through mine. "I've been looking forward to it all week." The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, tables draped in white linen and adorned with elaborate floral arrangements. 500 of Seattle's most powerful people mingled with champagne and canapes, completely unaware that they were about to witness a public execution. Darren was holding court near the bar, surrounded by colleagues and clients. He looked confident, untouchable, like a man who'd never faced consequences for his actions. When he saw Monica and me enter together, his face went white. "Showtime," Monica murmured. She walked directly to him, her heels clicking across the marble floor like a countdown timer. I followed at a distance, close enough to hear but far enough to avoid the blast radius. "Darren," she said, her voice carrying across the conversation, "I'd like you to meet my new business partner, Tyler Briggs." The group around Darren shifted uncomfortably. Several people recognized my name from the email that had destroyed their Golden Boy's reputation. "Monica," Darren said carefully, "what are you doing here?" "Supporting my husband's career, of course. Isn't that what wives are supposed to do?" She turned to the group with a brilliant smile. "Has Darren told you about his presentation tonight? It's about integrity in business. I helped him prepare the visual aids." Darren looked like he was going to be sick. "Monica, please." "Oh, don't be modest. You've worked so hard on this. Everyone should know about your expertise in, what did you call it? Maintaining professional relationships?" The company's CEO approached, a distinguished man in his 60s who'd built his reputation on old-school values and ethical business practices. "Mrs. O'Neill," he said warmly. "So glad you could make it. We're all looking forward to Darren's presentation." "As am I," Monica replied. "It should be quite illuminating." 20 minutes later, Darren took the stage with all the enthusiasm of a man walking to his execution. The presentation started normally enough, corporate buzzwords about synergy and stakeholder value, the kind of meaningless jargon that makes up most business presentations. But then the slides changed. Instead of pie charts and market analysis, the screen filled with photos of Darren and Tessa at the wine bar, at the hotel, in compromising positions that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. The ballroom fell silent. Darren stood frozen at the podium, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The photos continued to cycle, each one more damaging than the last, accompanied by text messages where he bragged about seducing another man's fiancée. This isn't," he stammered into the microphone. The final slide was a screenshot of a text conversation between Darren and Tessa, dated just 2 days before my original email. Darren: "I can't wait to see Tyler's face when he realizes what an idiot he's been." Tessa: "Poor guy. He actually thinks we're going to stop after the wedding." Darren: "Why would we stop? This is the most fun I've had in years." The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Camera phones appeared, capturing Darren's humiliation for posterity. Within minutes, the photos would be all over social media, ensuring that his professional reputation was as faded as his marriage. The CEO took the microphone from Darren's nerveless fingers. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice tight with controlled fury, "it appears we've had a technical malfunction. The presentation is over." But the damage was done. Darren stumbled off the stage, his face red with shame and rage. He spotted Monica and me near the back of the room and started toward us, his hands clenched into fists. "You bitch!" he snarled at Monica. You destroyed me." "No," she replied calmly. "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone got to see it. I'll sue you for this, both of you." "For what? Showing people your own text messages? Displaying photos you posed for willingly?" Monica's smile was razor-sharp. "Good luck with that, darling." Security arrived then. 2 large men in black suits who escorted Darren from the building while the crowd watched in fascination. The man who'd walked into the gala as a rising star in Seattle's business community left as a cautionary tale about hubris and moral bankruptcy. Monica and I followed him outside, where he stood in the rain looking lost and broken. "This isn't over," he said, but there was no conviction in his voice. "Yes, it is," I replied. It's been over since the moment you decided to destroy my life for entertainment. The only difference is that now everyone knows what kind of person you really are." "You don't understand what you've done. I have a reputation, a career." "Had," Monica corrected. "Past tense. As of tonight, you're unemployable in this city. No one will hire a man who cheats on his wife and brags about it to his mistress." "And speaking of mistresses," I added, "how's Tessa handling her newfound fame? I heard she had to move back in with her parents after the Wedding Magazine article came out." Darren's face crumpled. "She won't even talk to me. She blames me for everything." "Funny how that works," I said. "When the consequences finally hit, nobody wants to take responsibility." We left him standing there in the rain, a broken man who'd lost everything because he couldn't resist the thrill of destroying other people's lives. Monica and I had a drink at the hotel bar, toasting the end of our respective marriages and the beginning of our new partnership. She'd offered me a position at her law firm, heading up their construction litigation department. It was a better job than I'd ever imagined, with a salary that would let me buy a house twice the size of the one I'd shared with Tessa. "To new beginnings," Monica said, raising her glass. "And to making sure the right people pay for their mistakes," I replied. As I drove home through the rain-soaked streets of Seattle, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: peace. The weight of betrayal and humiliation had lifted from my shoulders, replaced by the satisfaction of a job well done. Tessa and Darren had thought they were so clever, so much smarter than the people they were betraying. They'd planned to make fools of Monica and me, to laugh at our pain while they built their new life on the ruins of our old ones. Instead, they'd destroyed themselves. Tessa was unemployable in the wedding industry, her reputation so toxic that even her former friends wouldn't associate with her. She'd moved back to her hometown in shame, taking a job at a department store makeup counter, a far cry from the glamorous career she'd built in Seattle. Darren had been fired from his company and blacklisted from the tech industry. His divorce had cost him half his assets, and the public humiliation had made him a pariah in Seattle's business community. Last I heard, he was working at a car dealership in Spokane, selling used Hondas to people who didn't know his story. As for me, I was better than I'd ever been. I had a new job, a new life, and the satisfaction of knowing that justice had been served. The people who'd tried to destroy me had destroyed themselves instead, and everyone in Seattle knew exactly why. I pulled into my driveway and sat for a moment in the darkness, listening to the rain on my windshield. Tomorrow, I'd start packing for my move to a better neighborhood, a better life, a better future. Tonight, I was content to savor the victory. Some people say revenge is a dish best served cold, but I'd learned something different over the past few weeks. Revenge is a dish best served publicly, thoroughly, and with enough evidence to ensure that everyone knows exactly what happened and why. Tessa and Darren had wanted to make me look like a fool. Instead, they'd made themselves into cautionary tales that would be whispered about in Seattle's social circles for years to come. And that, I thought, as I finally got out of my car and walked toward my front door, was justice served exactly right.